morning and welcome back to our Friday edition of Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, Justin, John, and... Hey, you missed your cue! Come on! Papa! Papa! Hey! Dingo! She's like, I like you, Mom, but I'm busy over here. No, ma'am. All right, enough. Yeah, bye, Dingo. No Dingo appearance today. Hi, Dingo. Okay, Dingo, you have a good morning, okay? I'll be out in a bit, okay? Her bed is in here, and I don't dare leave it in the other room because she'll chew a hole in it again. And the next hole I'm not going to fix. So, yeah, no Kiki this morning. She decided that she was going to be a Dingo instead. And Dingo is her evolved form, so, you know, it's how it is. Kiki's just teasing y'all, that's all. Oh man, I had totally went through all my blues yesterday and totally destroyed them all. Destroyed them all. Need to resort. Everything is all over the place. Alrighty, but today we're working on a very limited color scheme, so we don't have to really worry about anything else other than that. Get my ancient oak out of here. There we go. Good morning. Yeah, Kiki's a dingo. That's what I always call them when they're like misbehaving. They're dingoes. Not puppies, they're dingoes. Yeah, so how are y'all today? Yay, Friday, right? I'm so happy it's Friday. So I did take yesterday mostly off for the opening day of Overwatch League. But today I must finish editing my videos for the Patreon. And figure out what to do for supper. You know, it's like, I kind of hate stumbling into these days where I'm just like, supper. I just want to go, let's just go to the taco truck, David. Thank you for the bomb there. Oh, cool, Zachariah. Thank you. Thank you for the review. Yay! We're going to hit 10. We're going to hit 10. I'm so excited. 10 was my goal. That's so much better than so many first authors ever do, you guys. So, like, you should all congratulate yourselves if you left a review because, like, you helped. Thank you for helping. Yes. So, yeah. Yes, I did do a little book work yesterday. I'm trying to have no 0 days. No 0 days is kind of my motto right now, where every day I at least, and I got this from Naomi Novik, who's, you know, you guys probably know her as the Temeraire dragon, Napoleonic Dragons writer, but also as the Scholomance writer. Yeah, one of her top tips was always like, just check in with your manuscript, even if you only write one sentence. Every day, check in with it, because it keeps you in the loop. Oh, yeah, I'm happy it's Friday, too. I've been looking forward to this weekend. Although I am kind of sad because it's been... Oh, and thank you for the resub, ArrowWiz. 40 months. Nice round number there. Nice round number. But yeah, I'm happy that it's the weekend. I've been waiting for this weekend. Although, it was so nice and hot yesterday. It's like it's teasing me with summer right now. Where it feels like yesterday was 88 degrees. And I mean, you guys probably go, ugh, to that. But I go, oh my God, thank God it's finally warm out. I can't take my Texas weather preference out of myself. I've lived here, this is my third year in California, and I still can't wait for 85 to 90 degrees. But today it's 82, so it's acceptable. Yeah, I know, Big Chimpo, but I am a hot weather girl. Like, I love Arizona, but I really like it when it gets hot. When it gets, like, not 100. When it gets to 100, that's where my body goes, oh, okay, it's hot. But, like, it wasn't enjoyable, but back in Texas, I'd step outside at 8 p.m. during the summertime because I always walk in the evening, and it would 102 degrees still, and I would still take my walk. So, I don't know. It's unpleasant at 102, but like 90, like 85 to 90. Oh, I'm happy. I'm happy then. Oh, it did. I didn't check or Turgeon. See, I've been healthily not stalking my book. Mental healthily. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, then we got our 10 reviews and we're going to get even more. Yes. Yeah. See, Zachariah, we're on the same. You stayed in Texas, so you still get to enjoy the heat. But Yeah, I do love it. Like, at the very least, give me 80. 75 is okay. It's a little cool in the shade, but 75 is okay. 75 to 80 is decent, and most of you would call that really nice weather. But yeah, I really start thriving when it hits like 85 to 90. That's where I am. That's where my happy thing. Yeah. No, Big Chimpo. With the first book, that's not where it snowballs. So there was actually an excellent motto that I ran into the other day, which is on the self-publishing Reddit, I think, where it's like an experienced author saying, the first book is where you make fans. The second book is where maybe you make just a little bit of money off the second book, right? Because you're fans of the first book that found it, continue to, buy your second book because they want to know more about the story, right? So you make a little bit of money on the second book. On the third book is where you start advertising your series, and that's where it can start to snowball. That's where you have a chance. But first book's never gonna, like, that's one of the biggest disappointments for new writers. Now that since I've been hanging around on like Reddits and things that have a lot of, Quora, that have a lot of like new or aspiring writers, it's like the biggest fiction that gets perpetrated. By the way, we're starting out mixing our metals, so I'm just like throwing like a couple drops of cyan blue. I'm going to throw 1 drop of each of these, because remember, we're mixing our grays by doing all 3 colors, because we're painting this entire model with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black and white. And I'm not cheating, so I'm trying not to use black on my gray. So yeah. But yeah, so many like new baby authors, like they all think that they can make it big with their first book. You're never going to make it big with your first book. Nobody the world over knows who you are. And with one book, they're not going to know who you are. Like even J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter. I started to hear about Harry Potter after the second book was out and when the third book was just about to be released. And Harry Potter is like a phenomenon. So if even Harry Potter took a while to take off, then you know that your little book probably isn't going to, take off like big time the first bit it's out. Yeah, it's the same rule. It's the same zip curve. It's the same power law curve of every other creative endeavor. I always mention a cartoon that I saw that I thought put this the best, which was that there's a guy on stage juggling a bunch of plates, and behind him, behind the curtain, there's a steps going up to the stage, and on the steps are all the shattered plates. So it's like you can't be like, nothing is easy. There's this myth that you can like, and probably born from when there was a time after Kindle started to get big when ebooks were booming. And you could honestly, at that point, probably walk into the industry, publish any book, and get some money out of it because there was a scarcity. Like, people wanted more books than there were books, as far as ebooks were. But that day is long gone, and we are now in the age where you gotta work hard to get noticed. And so that's where we are now, right? You could say that we're in the same sort of age like when I started my Patreon. Like, I am no stranger to this age, because when I started my Patreon, everybody told me, oh no, it's a terrible time to start a Patreon. There's so many painting Patreons. You'll never make a success of it. Nobody can get into the market now. And that's never true, peeps. That's never true. Like, people who spout that defeatist stuff, it's not true ever that even in a crowded market, it is still possible to be a success. But what it usually means is that you need to double down on your strengths, and you need to be persistent, and you need to put out a good quality product. So I didn't listen to the haters, and I now have a Patreon that has enabled me to keep living during the whole of the pandemic, right? Is it the biggest Patreon on the planet? Nope, it's not. But it's enough for me right now, so... Yeah, exactly. And every time I lose a patron, because, usually it's because people just have a financial strain and they need to sign off for a while. Many of my patrons actually come back who drop off. But yeah, so somebody new will find me and sign up. So I stay pretty stable as far as my Patreon income right now. Which I'm grateful for. But if I had listened to the haters and decided that I could never make it, then I wouldn't be in that situation. And who knows what I would have done in the middle of the pandemic after I moved cross country and abandoned my job that I've had for 17 years into total unknown, right? Okay, so what we did 211, and then I put another drop of magenta in because it was shifting green. It's obviously still very blue, so we need a lot of orange. And the blue pigment here is stronger than the red and yellow, so we're going to have to really overload it. So I'm going to say 3 drops of yellow, and I'm going to put another drop of magenta in it, and we're going to see where that gets us. No, where this is cyan, magenta, yellow miniature. I've never used Hobgoblin until yesterday, and I'm not gonna, I've got a specific thing that we decided to do on this model. Although it does look a lot like it, but this is just a mix of cyan, magenta, and yellow. Because I asked if people thought that it might be fun for this. So now I've mixed in all those 3 drops of yellow. Now you can see that it's shifting green, right? This is how you mix a gray. It's also how you mix a brown. And the difference between them is that with the brown, you're going heavier with these two, and with the gray, you're heavier on the blue. That's it. So since we're going green, what we need to do is add the complementary colors. So we're going to be adding in more magenta. It's the biggest thing when you're launching is to get the words out to friends you know who admire your painting, who might want to get on there. And then you've got to get the word out somehow, Agent Marvel. So if you are trying to grow a Patreon, advertising is a thing, and often like it's just finding a way to get your face and your brand out there. You got to figure out what your strengths are as a person, as far as like as an instructor. Like if you're really good on video, then try doing Twitch, try doing YouTube. It's gonna get you eyes. Twitch can convert to Patreon. YouTube does convert, but at a very low rate, but much better rate than some other stuff. So the hardest thing about anything, about starting and launching a new book, launching a new Patreon, launching any new creative endeavor, the hardest thing is getting off that lump in the beginning and figuring out, how can I reach my audience? Where is my potential audience, right? Where are they? So it's still green, so I'm going to pop another magenta drop in there. And now I am actually going to pop a drop of white in there. Remember, when you've got a very dark color and you're having a hard time seeing what color it really is, you drop that white in there. And Tyler, thank you. 2 months. Yay. You're not too tired to resub. Yes. Well, right. I've said before, cyan, magenta, yellow is a gimmick. And it doesn't even really work that great in pigments. Well, it doesn't. I mean, it works, but it has limitations. Unlike in printer's inks. The reason that it works in printer's inks is that the inks are transparent. Now we're adding our white, so we're going to start seeing how our gray is developing. It is gray. It is, however, less blue than our Cathy, and it's also darker. So I'm going to add more white. But yeah, the reason we're doing this isn't because it's the most effective way to work with primaries, Big Chimpo. It's just because people hear this gimmick all the time in miniature painting. They hear about it, and so I may as well paint a mini using it. Because I already have the magenta in there. So if I'm going to go for magenta here, I may as well just go for the CM1K and white. Yeah, it's not the most effective primary. Like, honestly, the more effective primary would be going with a real red instead of magenta, and going with probably a more neutral yellow, because you can get close to a pure spectrum yellow. Sometimes these days you can even buy a spectrum yellow. And by spectrum yellow, I mean a yellow that's neither warmer nor cool, that can shift both ways. That's utilitarian. Some art companies do put that color out now. They created it via chemistry a while ago. There is not a true spectrum red or blue yet, to my knowledge. But you can get close enough. But yeah, so in Mark's class, for example, I was using Chimera, and I was using the red from Chimera. I did use a red shade blue because it's a darker blue. And then I actually used the cool yellow instead of the warm yellow, which is not my preference. I prefer to work with warm yellow instead, mostly because if I want to mix a green, I'm not seeking to mix a bright one. Almost always when I work with greens, they're muted. It's the green that I most enjoy. So for me, my best primary mixture is slightly different. Yeah. No, you shouldn't push it. Okay, so Yeah, you want something built, right? Exactly. And you know what? The rule there is, Agent Marvel, post valuable stuff, valuable content for potential fans, like 6 times, and then do a promotional post for yourself 1 time. So essentially, you need to come up with content for your channel that will be valuable to people, to the sorts of people that you're seeking to attract. And you don't actually ask or advertise until an extra post. Like, you should always be giving people content. If they find your content and it's valuable to them, and they're always getting some useful tidbit out of you, and you only ask every once in a while, that gives them a better idea that you're not just a sell and get in my face kind of person. And then they're more likely to want to, invest in you. And it's just natural, right? Like, I hate it when people just hit me with sell. So I try to give, and I hate social media. So, but look at my YouTube. Everything's free on my YouTube. I mean, I mentioned my Patreon on my YouTube, but I'm not like doing a sell. I'm not doing a video that's like, hey, this is the first part of this, and you can find the rest of my Patreon. I never do that because I hate that. And I don't think it works. So, yeah. I mean, all primaries, up until the Spectrum Yellow was created, Big Chimpo, all primaries lean either in one or the other direction. Like, you get close to a neutral red, like Naphthol can be pretty close to Spectrum Red. I think the red from Chimera is close to a Naphthol red. But that's still a slightly warm red. You still can't mix a perfect purple with it. It's not magenta. Magenta is the true cold red. And then you've got still a warm and cold yellow in most miniatures lines because nobody's paying for that Spectrum Yellow pigment. And then you've also got a green shade and red shade phthalo blue, although most people don't talk about it, but Chimera gives you each. So you can evaluate them. But yeah, so in every primary has a warm and a cool. And although, like I said, the Spectrum Yellow is available, most companies and miniatures companies haven't made that available yet. I kind of wonder why. It is possible that it's just because, honestly, when you're mixing paint, it makes more sense to just reach for the yellow you need. Like, having one Spectrum Yellow is great and all, but I'm betting that the orange phase yellow is still going to mix a better orange. Like, just barely. You probably can't, really tell the difference, but, it's just like that. So, yeah, for sure. But yeah. So, yeah, YouTube is, I think, I read a lot about Patreon when I was first considering starting it up. And let's see, we're a little bit green still. Hold on while I just assess this. I think I want one more drop of white. Because we were really close, this is really close to what we had for Cathy. So I just want to nail that color real quick. But yeah, they did say that when Patreon did studies, they found that a lot of things like Facebook don't really convert, or sometimes don't convert. Depends on your hobby, I suppose. But that like YouTube actually does convert to people moving to your Patreon. I think it may have been like it's harder to get people to convert from Twitch, I think is what they said. But I don't think that's true anymore. I think that art is strong enough on Twitch now that people are used to Patreons. And I think Patreon also, like the idea of Patreon and Ko-Fi and stuff like that, Coffee, however you pronounce it. All those, these platforms that support artists, like I think they're much more in the public mind now. So I feel like now Twitch actually does convert depending on what you're doing and your community and all that. But thank you for the sub, Valendar. No, that's not true at all, Agent Marvel. If you follow, I always subscribe and watch like the Patreon, like their Patreon's videos for its creators. Like when they do a talk or they have tips from X creator, you'll see that several creators do exactly that. They just pretty much offer their content first. If you want it fresh, you get it on the Patreon, then it goes up on the YouTube. And I do a little bit of that with my fundamentals videos, or I did do it in the past, because I figured, why not? It's an extra piece of content for my Patreon. And I'm going to be doing it for the free tier, the join for free thing that I'm beta-ing for Patreon on the 1st. So it makes sense, right? Especially for a free thing. where if you're doing a join for free, I'm not going to just give you exclusive content because you're not actually paying, but I'm going to give you exclusive content for a week and then you get it first, essentially. And I will do one PDF probably just to give them a taste. But it depends. It depends on like you, your audience, what feels good to you. Because, you know, that's true. That's a thing too, is what feels right to you. Yeah, 42. Valinor is close to the secret of the universe. I'm going to pop, I can see that this is just a little bit bluer. So I'm going to pop just a little bit of my cyan. And now I'm to the point where my gray is really close. And so I'm going to just pop a little bit of blue onto my my brush and mix that in instead of mixing a whole drop in. Just enough to shift it a little bit colder. And here is where training your eye comes in, where you really are just seeking to get really close. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like when you're trying to match a color, quote unquote, don't think you need to match it perfectly. Especially since this is just a base coat. We haven't done any highlighter or shading. That's what we're about to pop into. I just wanted to get this done because I'm going to be lining first, and then we're going to pop into probably shading. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Well, and the other advice that I would give is that everything's going to feel like it's an overload in the beginning. So start small. Don't do what I did. Don't start with 4 or 5 tiers of content and think, I could do this every month out just cold, from a cold dead stop. It was really overwhelming for the first year until I started dialing it in. And it still was hard, even in the second year, to feel like I had time to do everything. Now I've got it. I'm on year 4 and I've got it all dialed in. And now I feel like I can add in an extra thing, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, that's what I did, Gibson, pretty much. But now I have the energy and the space, and I know how long it takes me to do my stuff, and I know how long it takes me to edit stuff, and I know how long it takes me to do a PDF on average. So now I feel like I can add in another thing. But even so, like, there are still parts of my Patreon that I'm slowly phasing out, right? I'm phasing out my coaching because it takes a lot of time. And although it is my most expensive tier, it does put extra pressure on me every month. And I'm just like, I don't feel like it suits me. So it's not the part I enjoy the most. So yeah, one more plate to juggle. And, you know, and sometimes you're ready for that plate, and sometimes you think you're ready for that plate and you're not. And sometimes when you pick up a plate, you find that the plate is too big or too small or just wrong for you, and you can put the plate down again. So that's why my coaching is getting phased out. Part of it, a lot of it, is just that when I do a great coaching PDF, I'm like, dang it, I wish I could give this to everybody, right? And when I realized that was a big part of why I don't enjoy coaching, is that I'm only helping one person, and I don't want to just help one person. Then I realized that I just was going to start phasing it out. Also, a lot of people come into coaching. I feel like for me, it's hard to judge success with coaching. I'm going to mix a highlight too, just for fun. Just going to take my blue-gray and pop a little bit more white into it. I'm taking it, transferring it to a new well. And then we're going to get our lining on. Hi, Nitro. We're doing our mixing everything with magenta and cyan and yellow today on Cathy. And one thing I can do is I can pop, if I want to be more interesting here on this NMM, guys, I can pop a little bit more blue, tiny bit more blue into my highlight, and a tiny bit more yellow and magenta into my shadow, creating a browner shadow and a bluer highlight. So we could totally do that. But right now I must line. So we're going to actually create a liner. But yeah, there's all sorts of, I mean, when it comes down to Patreon, we're talking about Patreon because Agent Marvel has one, guys. A baby Patreon. Baby Patreon. When it comes down to anything like that, it's just, remember you're different from everybody else. Really figure out what your strengths are. Play to those strengths. And not even just strengths are my strengths are in videos, but what are your core strengths? Are you good with people? Are you good with focusing and getting things done? Are you good with coming up with great new ideas for stuff? Are you good with watching other people's videos on this stuff and then iterating a new video for yourself that adds to that subject somehow, right? Are you good at connecting with people? Are you good at are you good at explaining stuff and analyzing stuff? Figure out what you're good at that core kind of, not just I'm good at videos or I like PDFs, but at the core of you and how you relate to the world. What are your strengths? Are they more relationship building? Are they more strategic and thinking strengths? Are they executing strengths where you just get things done? All that kind of thing. Like, figure that out. It helps. It helps so much. Because when you can align yourself with a Patreon or with a creative endeavor, any kind of entrepreneur stuff, when you can align your endeavor with your strengths, that's where you can really hit the sweet spot, and you can just create much better, much more effectively. Oh, have fun, Big Chimpo. Well, and you don't have to, Gibson. I mean, nobody says we have to monetize everything, right? That's our current society telling us that that our creative endeavors are worthless unless we can monetize them. And you can pretty much just say, shove off society. Now, some of us do have a bad habit of turning all of our creative endeavors into businesses, but that's the entrepreneur bug, I think. That's it's just some of us just do that. Because I could care 2 cents what society thinks of me, but I do love creating a business thing. I've realized it's a kind of addictive. After the Patreon, I was just like, oh, I have to start my author thing now. Yeah. Take the Clifton Strengths thing. Because you'll be surprised. I'll bet you anything. Like Agent Marvel, and actually Becca, the Becca Syme, the Clifton Strengths coach that I follow for writers, she always is like, try not to go with any preconceptions, because there are a lot of disconnects when you find out your top 10 and at least 2 or 3 of them are nothing like what you expect. Because the thing is that different strengths can manifest kind of the same effect, but differently. So let's give you an example. Empathy. I would have sworn I was high empathy. I would have sworn it. Because I just react emotionally to other people's emotions, and I have all this, and I have this where I want to understand how people feel and things like that, right? I want to be in the other person's shoes. Turns out that empathy is my lowest stat. What I actually am doing is I've got a thinking strength that kind of does the same thing. It reaches for connectedness with other people, but it's an intellectual strength, not an emotional one. So go in, it's exciting. It's exciting with so many people I hear, take Clifton Strengths and go, oh, I hate my top, my second strength or my third strength. I can't believe I have this strength. I don't see how it could possibly be. But yeah, so there are different strengths that work from, some strengths will work from an emotional level and some will work from an intellectual level. And they'll get there. And that's why you should never be sad if you don't have a strength that you really wish you had, because chances are you can utilize your other strengths to get there in a different way. You'll just take a roundabout way. She's actually talking about that on my writing thing right now, because a lot of people wish they were high discipline or high focus. I'm lucky. I have both of those in my top 10. They're executing strengths. And they really make you get things done. As long as you're, actually utilizing them effectively. But there are a lot of people who just wish that they could get more done, right? That they wish they could be more focused, that they wish they could be more disciplined. But there are other strengths that can help you do that. It's just that you'll come at it from a different direction. Okay, so I've got a couple drops of black. I'm going to drop about 4 drops of yellow into this. That's probably too much yellow. We're going to build a brown liner. Probably too much, and I'll end up putting more black in. So what this is going to take us is olive green. And again, when we go green, what do? We add the complementary. We add red. So but I don't want to go to gray. So I'm not adding any blue at all. What this will do is take us in the direction of brown. But yeah, so go in open-minded, and it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting. And it can help, depending on if you have the cash. If you don't have the cash, obviously no, but I'm going to put 2 drops of magenta in with 4 drops of yellow and see where we get. Yeah, most of us got talked to in high school, essentially, high school and college. But you got to remember that your life is in your own hands and that those people, have their own issues to work through. You can't ever just give it up. You control your life, yes, there are stuff that happens that we just have to learn to roll with it, but we control how we roll with that stuff too. All right, let's see here. So we're getting brownish. We get still a bit greenish though, although I am a brown now, but I'm not dark enough. So I'm gonna add a little bit more black, and I think I'm just looking real close at the color that I'm getting here. Yeah, cursed, right? No money to be had in computers. So I think that's a pretty decent brown. I think I'm going to drop another drop of black in there. Yeah, this is hard mode. I could just grab brown liner, but, since we are trying to do this, I probably will go for brown liner in future lining sessions, but for now we're actually creating a brown. But yeah, so you can see that the difference between creating a brown and creating a gray is the addition of blue. So, and if you do create a brown, and you feel like it is too, this is unlikely when you're doing CMYK, but if you feel like you create a brown and it's too punchy, you can always add a little blue to take it down. But more likely you get more of a muddy, mucky kind of neutral brown, which is what I've got here, but that's what I want. So there we go, that's our brown. People has opinions. They all has opinions, and sometimes those opinions are wrong. Or they're just not right for you. So we've got this kind of filler area in here with Cathy. Just this blank, and that's just, the cast required this. So we want to paint that dark for sure. And I might even need another piece. I think I made another drop of black in this liner. I want it to go way dark. Way dark. Need it to go way dark. But yeah, since there's nothing in there, it's just a shadow. We're just going to paint it black or near black. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of alarmist crap going around. Because that's what sells clicks. Because our human brains love to dwell on catastrophe and not on happy stuff. But my brain really loves happy stuff, so I'm just gonna stay there. I just get disgusted at clickbait stuff. Yeah. I mean, ChatGPT is interesting, and it will have an impact. AI will definitely have an impact. AI is a disruptive technology. So, right, so just like ebooks disrupted the publishing industry, AI is a disrupting technology for many industries. But that doesn't mean those industries are going to die. It just means they're going to change. So it's like print books didn't die, but how they get to you and who does them have changed. But yeah, people love to go alarmist. Actually, people don't love to go alarmist, but the news media loves to go alarmist to make us read it. And our brains want to read about the train wrecks, and so we go over there and we do it. And I am going to say I'm just as bad, in some ways. That's why I did cancel my Quora subscription, though. Or my Quora, email. Quora is out there, but it's not getting me. Because more often than not, I was reading some terrible train wreck thing by a new writer who obviously had just, written their book with no editing, and, they expected to be rich and things like that. And I was like, oh, noes. All right. So I'm going to use this liner, and because it's using regular black and not actual liner, I had to thin it a bit. So the thinness that you want this, you want to be able to obviously do thin lines with it. When you put your brush through it, see how it closes right back up? You should not be able to see that funnel. If I pull my brush through it, I should not see a slowly closing funnel. It should show up, it should close back up right away. That's how thin it is. Yeah, not yet. We'll see. We'll see how AI develops. I'm interested, but so you want to be able to also make really thin lines, but you also, here's where you kind of keep an eye on how much paint on your brush gives you a darker line or a lighter line, but still enables you to do fairly dark lines. So for here, I need to actually keep a little bit of paint on my brush here because this brown is a little more translucent. So if I want a dark line, I need to keep a little more paint on my brush, but still less enough so that I can make a thin line. Yeah, I will admit that I'm thinking about using AI to try to brainstorm a couple of logos for me. Because last time I went to Fiverr, nobody was doing the kind of logo work that I wanted. So maybe AI can do something for me. Or at least it can give me a start. I mean, the fact that I'm an artist helps, right? Oops, got a little bit blurfy there, but that's all right. Just trying to get these plates outlined. They all have edges too, which is difficult. But yeah, all that logo stuff takes a back seat to you want holodecks, yeah. Well, that's different, right? VR is totally different. And VR is like racing ahead. Like alternate reality and virtual reality are leaping forward. So I think we get holodecks before we get true AI. But we'll see. Yeah, all these tiny little... There's a lot of little fiddly stuff on Cathy's armor. I've got my gray here so that when I kind of screw it up, I can fix it. Yeah, I suppose that's true, Kirst. I have not, like, studied the holodeck, what exactly the holodeck does. I haven't watched my Star Trek for a long time. So I'm using my gray to slim down those lines and make them finer by coming at them from the opposite direction, which is something that I almost always do when I'm dealing with freehand or very fiddly stuff. Somewhat. I mean, some of the biggest games are still... I mean, you've still got, like, the big shooters out there that haven't really changed their tech. You've got, like, World of Warcraft. You've got, you know, and other MMOs. I think games that are trying to be cutting edge are trying to work with, yeah, the body movement reading stuff, but it's imperfect, so... when it comes down to it, somebody's going to have to figure out a way to make it easy and make it, you know, inexpensive enough to hit the right price point that it can propagate through the population. I feel like that's the challenge right now. How do you make, like, a full body scanner, movement scanner, you know, you got to make it cheaper so people can afford it. Otherwise, you don't get an audience. And you have to have a reliable, like, it has to be somewhat reliable, obviously, so that it works. It's like, what was it? Was it the Wii that you could use hand motions with? You know? Like, so that was the basic. Yeah, the Wii. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Camera body tracking was not precise enough. Yep. Pendrake, that means that you totally would kill my favorite game. Overwatch is a shooter. It's a superhero shooter. That would make me sad. Though I probably get more free time sometimes. Pendrake is not allowed to have any power. Okay, so we're lining around this kneecap thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yep, Tyler, yep. Yeah, you can just not play the kind of games you don't like. Agreed. And I hate to say this, like, I don't know, I haven't read the research lately on psychology and shooters and all that kind of thing. I am not up on the latest science, but there are just some days, guys, where I just want to sit down and click some heads. Oh man. Oh. It's true. It's horribly violent and it's true. But you know, in real life, I'm like so soft-hearted. I have trouble like even hurting a bug. Like only the bugs that most creep me out. Like even when I found the live grasshopper in my salad, I still like, you know, like bundled up a bunch of the salad in a paper towel and threw the grasshopper and the salad into the shrubbery so that he could eat it in peace and not be in my salad. Oh no. Real-time strategy was always my doom, Kodiak, because I have to think about things before I do them. So I'm actually very bad at those. Like, I hate them. Like, it makes me stressed out in 0.2 seconds and I would stop playing. It's poster hack, yeah. I mix a bunch of different ones. Um, if you need to paint both the bottom and the top, I would just use my bubble wrap trick. Like, I mean, sure, stick your spaceship down on poster tack for the first part of it, but then when you've got to paint the bottom, which you don't need to paint as elaborately anyway, right? Because it's the bottom. Just get yourself a nice soft, the kind of crumply kind of bubble wrap, and just hold the model in the bubble wrap while you paint the underside. The bubble wrap is totally non-abrasive, so it's not going to rub paint off, and it gives a very soft pressure because of the air bubbles, so that it, again, is not rubbing paint off. You might lose a tiny bit of paint, but in general, this is going to be a way to gently hold any large model while you work on the other side. So I have the hair painted back here, and I can just hold her and not have to worry about that. All right, well, let's do... No problem. Yeah, I mean, there's an audience for all of those, right? MOBA definitely still has an audience, and you know, a good MMO is going to attract people, for sure, as long as it's well done. I think what we're not mentioning is as the first person like adventure RPGs, right? That's a genre that is still going very strong. That's what David likes. And David also likes the puzzle games. Like, he likes a good adventure RPG with puzzles. Because he's really good at puzzles. And I'm terrible at them. So this is way too fiddly. All right. I'm going to start I think I have to start actually highlighting and shading, or I'm going to go insane with this lining. You can see how crazy all the detail is on this model. And so lining is going to take us forever. And I don't really want to spend the whole time lining. So, what was it? There was a very cozy kind of fantasy MMO that they've been working on for a while. I'm on its Discord because I kind of keep an eye on it. It's supposed to be kind of a comforting, kind of like safe MMO, which makes me interested. It's like a cozy fantasy MMO. So I'm very intrigued to see if the writing is any good, because that is going to make or break it. Like, the problem with cozy is that if you don't have some way to introduce tension, even if that tension is just a puzzle or a mystery, and that's what what cozies have to do, is they have to double down on the puzzle and mystery part. But if you don't have something, then it's just boring. Oh, see, David would rather have a game where he doesn't have to play, he just thinks his way through. He really loves puzzles to the exclusion of story. Like, we always laugh because, like, I'll ask him, knowing full well the answer I'll get. I'll ask him about some piece of lore with the WoW boss that he's fighting or whatever, the raid, and he'll be like, blank look. Because all he cares about is, like, the dance steps needed to defeat the boss and how perfectly he can do them. And that's not really, well, it kind of is a puzzle. But yeah, other games that he really enjoys are all based, like, there is a story, but the story to him is always secondary. He would rather just have a game that's full of puzzles with just a very loose story. Okay, let's see here. All right, so let's take our light. I think I was going to mix in just a little bit more blue to this highlight color, so let's do that. And let's mix a shadow color, and I'm going to actually, since I've got this brown liner, I'm just going to take some of my base, and I'm going to mix some brown liner into it to get a shadow that's more brown and darker. There we go. I'm going to put some water in that. Yeah. I forget which game. I mean, he was a big Metroid player, and but he also just likes the challenge of trying to fight past, to use his ability. Like, he's warned me already that I'm going to be a Diablo widow when Diablo 4 comes out, so I'm going to thin down this brown now that I'm not using it for the other thing I was using it for. Yeah, but I'm married to him. We get along just fine. It matters. It's. I just know that that's his shtick. But what it means, Shadowraven, is that when we play co-op games, David handles, like, the puzzle and strategy part, and I enjoy the story and, like, participate. And he kind of, like, tells me, okay, this is the kind of shtick we have to do. So we can both enjoy the game together because our strengths are in totally different directions. So there's that too. Yeah, David does a lot of Mythic Plus. Yeah, because the challenge, right? The challenge of learning the best way to do it, doing it quickly, executing it well. Yeah, he likes it. It's stressful for me. All right, I'm going to put a little bit of blue into my highlight color. Yeah, it's partnership. That's the way it is. I think that's something that our culture, like, when we're different from others, it can be easy to turn it into I don't know if I'd get along with that person, when in reality, it's just one part of their personality, right? All right, so we've got a little bit of a bluish color now here. It almost looks baby blue on the screen, but it's actually not. So here are two colors we're going to work with. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, is I actually enjoy raiding much more than Mythics. But raiding takes too much time, and I was thinking I would get back into it with David this expansion because I liked the dragon theme. I always loved Blackrock back in the day, back in vanilla, but it's just so much time, and it takes, like, I could be doing other things. I'm just not these days. I mean, I spent a decade raiding in WoW, and these days I'm just not willing to sacrifice that time. But I still go in, like, when David is raiding, I still come and watch the fights sometimes. Because I miss it. I miss the teamwork aspect. I like teamwork. So just a little bit more lining because I want to kind of do this shoulder pad. I want to do the shoulder pad and do the breastplate. So a little bit more. I probably just want to block in the paint bottle and paintbrushes and stuff. Remember always to paint the outer edge on these shapes too. I mentioned that with the lion. I'll mention it again here. And when you paint these rivets, make sure you're painting around the edge too. That way when you come back and highlight them, you will be able to keep that dark edge. Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, officer, yeah. Especially if your guild is of any size. Yeah, just too much. I still have a friend who's like the guild master of a huge raiding guild. But it eats her life. Like she has no life. She's happy because that's what she wants to be doing with her life. So that's the good for her. But boy, I could never do it. I've got too many things I want to get done in life, and I'm very conscious of the fact you never know how much time you've got. These days. All right, there we go. Got everything shaded in. Now we can go and get some highlighting in and see how that looks. Yeah, it was. Like, that's what Ed always said, too. When he was big into, like, Star Wars, he was, I forget which one it was, but there was a Star Wars MMO he was big into, and I think he and Dave and Kevin or somebody were in a guild, and he said he quit it because he realized that it was just another work for him. It was just another job for him. And that wasn't what he wanted. Yeah, right. It's an officer in a guild. So guilds are organizations that that help organize events for their members in the game. So if you are an officer in a guild, you have to deal with like disputes and setting up events and running events, and you know, maybe if you're a big guild like my friend, fundraising, making sure teams are organized, dealing with drama between team leaders, you know, all the things a boss in a job has to do. It's crazy talk. That's some of the stuff that she's had to deal with. Politics and people not getting along, and somebody feeling like they're not getting enough of X or Y. It's a lot of people organizing and people wrangling. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. They sell dungeon runs. Like they'll essentially say, we'll run you through X dungeon for loot or X raid for loot, and they'll do that for charity a lot, actually, to help promote. They do it for charity often to keep their name out there, to make people want to be part of them. Stuff like that, but it's a lot. So I'm just blocking in some of this blue here and leaving a little bit of my gray around the edges. Yeah, it can be very cool. Yeah, recruiting new people to replace people that leave. Yep. You get it. Yeah, and when you've got like, yep, and that's true, Aphistic. Yeah, like you don't regret doing it. You honestly think it helped with leadership. Yeah, and it does. And in some ways, it's kind of a good way to get into it, right? Because it's not in person, so there's a little less social pressure on you if you're sensitive to social pressure, which a lot of us introverted people are. But yeah, I mean, running a guild, some people with the big WoW guilds, you can even put that on a resume these days. I hate to say it, but it's true. You can. If you were a guild leader of a really large guild and you did it for several years, you can essentially put that on your resume and talk about how, you know, it gave you this or that ability, you know, or helped your leadership or helped your problem solving or whatever, you know. You did put it on your resume. Yep. Yeah, right. When you needed to stuff and do that. Yeah, but it works. I mean, nobody's gonna, these days, no one is gonna laugh at you for doing that. Like, so there's a little bit of a cutoff here, and we can even either soften the edge like I just did, or we can make it very sharp. If we make the edge very sharp, then it's going to send a different message about what kind of, like, how shiny this armor is. If you do a very sharp cutoff, it says that it's a very, very shiny, chromy type of surface. Whereas if we soften it a little bit and blend a little bit, it's going to say that it's a more burnished surface. So softer. Yep, there you go. Yep, it's a thing. Can do resume. Yeah, the world has changed, like to quote Galadriel. And you know nerds are in charge when you can put, like, heading up your MMO rating guild on your resume and not be laughed out of the boardroom. Of course, anybody who's done that job or had a friend who did that job knows what a pain in the butt it is, so. So we're just setting up an under reflection down here. So we've got there, and then we're going to start, I'm going to grab some white so that I can pop in a bright highlight on the breastplate, and we can get that going on. But yeah, different world out there, that's for sure. Alrighty. So I'm going to do a 2-to-1 for my white. I want to be able to, I want it to be pretty strong, but I want to, so that I can hit little highlights on these little tiny ridges on the armor. But I also want it to be thin enough that I can blend it a bit. Yeah, true, Aphistic, true. I don't think I'm ever going to have a real job again, guys. I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, sometimes I see a job notice and I'm just like, I could do that job. And then I'm like, Like, as long as Patreon doesn't tank and as long as my my books keep doing, keep building an audience, I think I'm going to be okay. Though sometimes, like, I always get, like, when I see a cool shop that's hiring, like, I always get tempted to apply because I do actually enjoy working retail. I enjoy working, like, at a shop, selling products that I use myself, that I can be knowledgeable about, and connecting with people who also like, that hobby or that thing. So if I got a job again, I think I would just honestly get a retail job. Ah, yes, and there's my stuff. Thank you, Quindy. Thank you. Yes, I have a Patreon. If you didn't know, if you're new to the stream, hi, I have a Patreon, and I love it. All right, so we're putting a little really bright highlight there. Oh, you know what? I'm not sharp. I'm not sharp. How could I be not sharp? I've been out of focus. Not sharp. There we go. So now we can see that I'm going to pop in a little bit brighter highlight here, more and more, actually. This lets me, having a thinner white means I can blend it a little bit and I can kind of pop it up. Now this is an odd one because usually with a breastplate on a female, what we usually see is you'll see rounded breastplates. But here it's got a crease that goes up and down, and the center dip is totally taken up by the lion. So we don't really have a rounded so much as kind of a rounded surface highlight here, and then it trails off a little bit along this edge. So we'll pop it that way. Yeah, quote unquote real job, right? Right kind of science nerd, yep. Yeah, like if I'm going to be in trouble if my yarn shop, my favorite yarn shop is ever hiring. Of course, everybody else will probably also be like, you know, trying to get that job. That's the thing about like bookstores and yarn shops and game stores is when they hire, they have plenty of applicants. All right, a little bit of light along the collar there, so bringing this up. Yeah, it's a lion, heraldic lion. At least it appears to be. I'm painting it as one. Could also technically be a chow chow, but you know. It's tiny enough. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a lion. Because, I mean, like I said, it could be a chow chow. But it's hard to tell sometimes. I gotta blend in this a little bit more, I think. Blend. There we go. There we are. I'm probably also going to bring up a highlight. Right up along the top here before it cuts up onto into the collar there. I'm going to just line it at first. And then I'll blend it in a little. Oh, it's starting to get really nice out. I can feel the breeze through my window here. Then it's going to get back down into like 60s and 50s, and I'm going to be like, whoa, making sad noises over here. It's hard to see kind of what goes on up here at the join at the collar. So I'm kind of just extrapolating and making stuff up. Nice, Joe Frick. Yeah, it's going to give you 82 here today, and I love it. So up on the top space here, the darkest color, the shadow is actually going to be our base color. So the darker gray. Because any upward facing surface, you still have a shadow, but the shadow is lighter than the shadow on a downward facing surface. No, it's nice here. It's not humid. It's going to be gorgeous. All right, and we'll pop up a little bit of an under reflection here. Remember, we've got highlight, shadow, and then bounce light, right? Raining in 45. Oof. Yeah, Midwest has had a really cold spring. My parents, my mom has been complaining about it. I sent her pictures of roses because everybody seems to have rose bushes in their yard in our neighborhood, and they're all blooming like crazy. And she's like, if I was here in Wisconsin, it'd be a frozen rose. It was like 42 the other day. Yeah, I do not miss Midwestern spring. I do not. Texan spring was so much nicer. And spring here, it's been okay. It's been cold for us, relatively speaking, but cold for us is warm elsewhere, so can't really complain. So a little bit of highlight there, see how that goes. Now we're also going to have to do something with this edging, right? So let's kind of emulate a little bit. Here we got this opportunity to hit a little bit of a highlight. Probably one here too. Whenever you've got a thin trim like this, what you really want to do is just alternate light and dark. try to do it in line with where, like here, we've got an edge here that cuts backwards. So building up that highlight there makes sense. And in the center, it makes sense as well. Light coming from the top. Yeah, we don't get too bad humidity here in the South Bay. So when I bring in this little highlight here, I can also use it to clean up this little line here, this kind of blurfy. See, fall sucked fall lasted like 2 weeks, as I recall, in Wisconsin. When I moved out to the East Coast, fall was my favorite season because in Baltimore, it would honestly last for 3 months, and it was the first time I'd ever experienced that. So we'll bring in a highlight there, right up next to that, and we'll trim up that line to make it tighter. Use a little bit of the liner to get a little bit of shadow in there. Blurfy, it's a technical term. Yeah, the problem is that then it gets you'll have a cold snap, everything dies, and then everything is brown for the rest of the fall. And then it just dives right into winter. Like, honestly, before I got offered that job at Reaper, I don't think it had occurred to me to just move to a warmer state. But like, once I did, I'm a fan. Never gonna go back to the cold ever. Bridget sends me pictures of her going on walks with Kiki's mom and aunt in the freezing North Dakota winters, and I'm just like, it's beautiful, but I don't know that I want to be there. That's why you have evergreens, yeah. Yeah, New Mexico's gorgeous. If I hadn't met David, I was seriously considering a move to Santa Fe. Don't worry, Papa. Stream's almost over. She's restless. She has to go out a lot more while she's in heat, so. And she already ate her chew. I have to get her more bully sticks. I'm gonna lighten up this area a little bit here. It's a downward facing, but we can still bring up a little bit of light. Yeah, she didn't want to come and say hi this morning. As she gets older, she wants to jump up on me less, which should be a good thing, but she doesn't say hi in the morning. Actually, what I should do is if I get out of the chair, I'm pretty sure I can get her to stand on the chair, so. Because she knows that command. And then she's not putting her paws up on Mom, which she knows is otherwise a bad idea. I don't want to give her conflicting signals. She's definitely, like, grown a crap ton of adult brain cells in the last month. She just turned 10 months, too, guys. Kiki is 10 months old. So a little bit of highlight toward the bottom there, bring it up. These little white dots are a little bit too strong, so I'm going to back them off with a little bit of blue-gray. Kiki's just puzzled. Like, she's like, why does my butt feel weird? But otherwise, she's doing okay with it. She's just maturing really fast now. Like, adult Kiki is coming into existence as we watch. It's like crazy. It's crazy how fast she shifted. She still has a little bit of puppy in her sometimes, but she knows, like the mouthing has almost completely stopped. And the jumping up has completely stopped just in the last, like, few weeks. Like, it's just like night and day. So, it's funny how fast they brain shift. I had forgotten. My last puppy was a very mature puppy. Like, Blazy was an old soul from when she was little, so I kind of took after Kiri that way. So she was a lot less trouble, but there we go. So I'm kind of making the highlight come up around the line here a bit. I'm feeling okay about this. Here on the hip, it's a cylinder. I'm going to have to block in some light, I think, right on that edge. Because I'm kind of pulling light that way, kind of coming down like this. So, plus the shield is going to disrupt light on this side. So let's continue with our pattern. And then there'll be a shadow as well. Yeah, Kiki doesn't want outside constantly, but she has to go more often, so she's to the point where she's on yard arrest, though. No more walks. No more walks to her out of the woods. But we got out the flirt pole again, and she loves the flirt pole so much that she hasn't even noticed, like, she doesn't even care that her walks have been curtailed. So a little bit of shadow here. I kind of feel like hey, Pa, what you doing? You hanging out? Yeah, we're almost done, Papa. I started kind of on time today, so we can actually go for our playtime instead of our walk. Yeah, Keeks is okay with it. Like, David was afraid that she'd miss her walk, but since we run around with the flirt pole, she's like, she loves it so much, chasing that thing, chasing that tiny lure. She doesn't even care. Like, I joked to David this morning that she's actually going to be more disappointed when she goes back to her walks. Because she's going to want to play with the pole. The other thing to understand, too, about waiting later, because even if Kiki was just a pet, I would have waited till after her first heat. But there is some research showing that early spay and neuter contributes to, can pop up the chance of cancer. It's a significant number, not like a huge number, but it is significant statistically. So always do your research before you decide when to spay and neuter. And when I do finally get Kiki spayed, I'm going to try to find a vet around here that'll do an ovary sparing spay. Because when you just yoink the hormones out, the coat can just go to crazy tangled mess. Yeah, so I definitely endorse spay and neuter, especially for, for pets, but I'm much more comfortable with people waiting until they're after 6 months. We tend to say around a year, our breed being big. I guess with smaller dogs, maybe not as, but even then, I guess I'd wait until at least 8 or 9 months. That's just me, though. It is what it is. Everybody's got to make their own decision. Yeah. Yeah, it's a single chance to double-digit jump for thick cancer. Yeah, that sounds right from what I was reading. I mean, you are modifying the body in a significant fashion because hormones are so important. So it makes sense that it would have an impact. It's sad that it's that impact. So I extended my light a little bit down here, so I have more of a shadow here, and I'm going to pop a little bit of light down here more in the navel. And I'll leave that dark stripe right there. And I'm going to blend this in, but I'm blocking at this point. Although I do blend as I go a little, as you can see, a lot of my focus here is figuring out where my light is going and where it has to be, and making sure that it looks correct. So right now this is bothering me, so I'm going to figure out what I need to do. Maybe I need to extend my shadow a bit. That's a bit better. But yeah, Keekers will, pretty soon I'll probably start looking for a vet to do hips and elbows. Technically, some organizations want you to wait till 2 years before you do them, but I kind of want a preliminary look at Kiki's. Because, you know, if she fails, if her hips are bad, then I'm not going to breed her. So then I'll just go for the spay. And Bridget will be very sad, but it's the way it is. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if there's been a study. It's not always, the ovarian and breast cancer thing does go down with a spay, but it's other cancers when you take away the hormones that the body uses to balance itself. I think like hemangiosarcoma and stuff like that. I don't know. I'd have to reread the studies. But it doesn't just impact the reproductive system. But it depends. Yeah, I know nothing about cats and how it functions with them. So. Bottom line, do what you think you need to do for your pet to be happy and healthy. Bottom line. As long as it doesn't hurt them. Obviously we don't want to hurt our animals. Yeah, pretty much all of us Shiloh breeders will tell you not to spay or neuter before a year old. That is just like growth. It's the reproductive hormones are also growth hormones, so you can never just yank out something out of the body and expect everything to just everything else to just keep functioning as normal. Systems are systems. They're interdependent. and having had that surgery to myself as a human, you know, I can say that it does impact stuff. It's like instant menopause. All right, so a little bit more, bringing that light down. I'm feeling a little better now about this whole area here. I think I still need to bring up this light here and a little bit there, but it's coming along. It's looking pretty good. I feel like the light, since I extended that shadow a bit, I feel like the light's a little bit better. I do feel like I need a stronger white light here and then to carry it down. So with doing complex armor like this, it's important to start with a bigger space, I think, so that it gives you room to work and really see things. I usually will start on the torso because it makes sense. It's cylindrical. I can look at how the light is coming from the face and bring it down the body and all that kind of thing. If you do like a bright hot spot, you can simulate a shinier armor as well. So how sharp your light comes up, like as opposed to if you're fading it in, how bright it gets, and how sharp your shadows are next to it will have an effect on how bright and shiny everything looks. So whenever you're doing a texture or an effect like this, a lighting effect, keep in mind that what you're really trying to do is give the viewer information. Like, really, that's what you're doing when you're painting a miniature in general. You're trying to paint everything. You know what? I hear weird noises. I'm going to check on the puppy. If you're chewing what I think you're chewing, you're dead. All right. You're not dead. That's good. Good girl. I'm sorry, Kiki. I really thought you were chewing a very bad thing, and I'm so happy that you aren't. Do you want to come in and see people? Here, come on in. I'll give you a reward. Come in. Get up on the chair. Papa, come on. Get up on the chair. Get up. Yeah, there we go. There's a keeker. There's my keeker. I was really afraid because we had her gated off from some plants and from our coffee table because she chewed the corner of it. Good girl. Okay, Papa. Good girl. Hi. Can you wait for another 5 minutes for Mama? Can you wait for another 5 minutes? She's like, no, I just want pettins. She's just sitting here with her paw up on me going, please pet me. I was all alone. Okay, out there. Exile. Good girl. I'll be out in just 5 minutes, okay? I'll be out in just 5. Good girl. Go back to your bone. I forgot she had a bone out there, and so I heard this noise, and I'm like, oh, that better not be the table. You just never know. Yeah, you had puppy. Yeah, so I'll just have her get up on that chair from now on. Yeah, you missed it. Yep. Should have held it, Gibson. Alrighty, so let's brighten up that so it's more in line with all of our highlight, because wherever the light is stronger, you're going to get a stronger reflection as well. And my paint's a little thick here, so if I really wanted to blend, I'd thin it a bit. So I can do that and throw a little water in there. Because 2-to-1 with the white is too strong to really blend it. So if you still want to keep your fairly strong white to do those little pinpoint highlights on the little tiny plates, then you can transfer some of your white to a new well and add waters to that. That way you've got both. You can do a spot highlight, but you also can do some blended highlights. But white takes a lot of water to blend nicely, so. Yeah, I need to find a vet around here that does hip and elbow x-rays and the budget for that. It won't be cheap. So I blended it a little bit there. I use a different brush. I have kind of a crappy brush that I got from a Kickstarter. It really is a bad brush, and it's bigger. Since it was free with the Kickstarter, it was a freebie. I don't mind totally destroying it. So this is my big mixing brush. My average brush that I use is that size. I like using a bigger brush for mixing because then usually I'm just mixing with the puffy end, and it actually lasts longer. If you use a smaller brush as your mixing brush, you're going to get paint buildup in the ferrule really fast. But if you use a bigger brush, I like to use kind of this moderate large size. I used to mix everything. I used to mix paints just with the brush that I was using, and yeah, it's not ideal. So. She's making the weirdest noises out there. I have no idea what she's doing, but she hopefully has not shifted to the table. That's all I'm saying. I'm giving her the chance since I took down the barricade between the table and her and the plants. And you give them the chance, and then sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're wrong to give them the chance. So, no, it isn't a dry brushing brush, actually, Gibson. A dry brushing brush is that. Or a filbert. Sometimes I like the curved round, but they're always a flat. Always a flat with the dry brushing brush. These, this would be a terrible dry brushing brush because you've got these little strands like poking out at the top. And like what you really want is the flat because you want to be able to control. These little strands are going to want to poke into your detail crevices. So I find that this shape is not as good for dry brushing. Yeah, like anybody with half a brain, guys. If you see something as wolf hair brushes, it's like you should question why. Hello, gimmick. Hello. Come on, artists have been putting together brushes with natural hair for centuries, and never once did they bother with wolf hair brushes. There's probably a reason. And it wasn't that they didn't have wolves back then. Well, okay. It's a brush that holds together very poorly. Although you should never look at a brush when it's dry. You should always look at it when it's wet. This is the same size as my, roughly, my number 2 Da Vinci. But notice that it's fatter. And I prefer more narrow. So you could, if you had this brush, you can do anything with this. This one, though, because it's a little fatter, and you can see that it's unevenly trimmed. Like the hair is actually sticking out. Like, it's as if they shaped it by trimming the hairs instead of shaping the brush. So it's essentially just a crap brush. But the size of the brush is just, you can do anything with it. I mean, it's just like my, my giant number 3. I painted most of my lumberjack bust with this, the giant number 3. Seriously, I did. So if it actually held that tip, and if the tip was actually like, if it held it while it was painting, it would be a fine brush. But it doesn't. It's a craptastic brush. No, the only reason these have a cover on them is because they traveled to the class with me. Otherwise, all my brushes over here don't have covers. I keep all my tubules so that I can put them on for travel because I take brushes to cons and everything else. I just haven't used my Da Vinci's since I came back from the class. There were plenty of dead wolves around in those days too, Joe, for them to pluck. Sorry? All right. Okay, let's get a little bit more highlight down here. Well, if it's not going to work, I mean, the brush was, like I said, it was a freebie, and it obviously was an inferior freebie, and so it just went into the junk pile, and when it's in the junk pile, it's a mixing brush. I can bring up a highlight slightly along this edge to suggest the shape of that plate. And I am going to tone down these highlights even more. And pop up the ones along the line. Yeah, I'm sure that humans have tried like a great number of different hairs in brushes, right? Over the ages. And the ones that stayed are the ones that had some particular application. Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there. It looks pretty okay from this end. And then your highlight's going to come down the hip. And it'll wrap around a little bit to the front. Probably focus more down here. So let's block that in. We'll block that in as our last act here. So from here to here, to here, to here, to here. Now it starts to creep around. Now we have a front angled plate, so we're going to move our highlight a little bit. We're just kind of dabbing to bring it around. So we can see the light. You want to be able to see the light wrapping around the figure, like so. You see that? And it follows her form, right? You're fighting against science on that one. Capillary action. If you created some sort of block there, then the paint would just adhere to that. Like, it's just the nature of the beast. It's like trying to create a transparent paint that covers, like trying to use a transparent pigment but try to make it cover. It's just they're mutually exclusive. Transparency and opacity are opposites, and the physical scientific traits that define them and make them possible are opposites. Well, it might fluff the tip, but like right now you've got these brushes and they are actually glued together with a little blob of glue down here, right? So if you moved that glue up, you actually would just essentially have the problem sooner because the glue, then the paint would glob onto that glue and dry up instead of having to go down here and go out from there. Either way though, in order to keep the brush in shape, you must use some adhesive. Otherwise you'd lose hairs. And the brushes, then the nature of the hair just being all held together, it just creates a capillary action effect. So, and that's just physics. So until you make physics defying brushes. Fluid dynamics, I guess. Sometimes we want things and they're just not, like, it's just not possible. Not without, like, I mean, at some point, could you make something that, yeah, because you can't make something that repels liquid, because you need the liquid to stay on the brush. So, I don't know how you do it. I don't know if there's some weird nanotech that could do that sort of thing. So, just bringing in those lights, light, 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 more light. And now we're down to the last part that I didn't line. So shade underneath these big spikes. And all these little rivets. Yeah, this model is going to take us a while because it's so detailed. Crazy detailed. Like, and the feet are even super detailed. Paint is all about physics. Physics and chemistry. Painting is about physics and paint is about chemistry. Science. Do a little bit of Thomas Dolby there. And these plates are the tiniest, like on the feet. I need to like just figure out like what's going on here. So the leg cocks backwards here. And so we're really going to see the highlight on these spikes, but we're not really going to see, you can see even that this is more recessed, and we're going to see the light more on this leg. So that looks nice. So you can see that light very clearly. You should be able to see your light. And we're able to do this right now and have it look this good because we lined. Because lining, remember, is just a very abbreviated, very stripped down shadow. So since we do have some shadows here, we are able to like create that NMM illusion, even though I haven't put all of the shadows that I need in here yet. So yeah, there we go. And that's about the stream. That's Real Cap It. Remember, I am not streaming tomorrow. We have been invited to go to an art show with one of David's old friends. So we will be doing that, and I will not be streaming. We'll get back to my stream the week after, probably. Trying not to like glob up all my weekends. I kind of want to relax this spring and take it easy because I know fall is going to be like ridiculous. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you like how Cathy is starting to turn out. Oh, getting breezy out. I might have to put our umbrella away. I was just looking out. Getting blustery as the weather changes. Yep, it was good hanging out with everybody. Thanks. Oh, and on Monday, we're getting really dangerously close to done with Miss Sophie. We were blocking in the gold, so we'll do the NMM. That way we can think about attaching her wings. But yeah, she's almost set. Reaperland today, huh? Aren't we special? Super. But yeah, so we will... these are very different color schemes. They're both red, blue, yellow color schemes, by the way. Although technically you could say this one is blue and orange. But it'll end up more like a red, blue, yellow. And so is Cathy, but of course we haven't added in a bunch of the colors yet. So yes, thank you everybody. I hope you have a lovely weekend. I'm planning to just relax, have a very nice weekend, and I'll see you all on Monday. All right? Quindy, you have a great one too. All right, bye-bye.